Welcome to the Brand Identity Design Podcast, guys. My name is Jason. I'm your host. I am a designer myself. And today we're going to have an awesome conversation with Lisa. We're going to speak about the science and psychology of goal setting. And during this episode, we will try to break down some of the complexities of entrepreneurial goal setting using behavioral science, when to set them, how to fix them, how to know when to give them up. So thank you so much for people who have joined our conversation live. I want to say thanks to Karen, Thomas, who have been consistently supporting our show, Kirk, Tiffany, Melissa, and many others who have joined this conversation. So I want to give you guys a little overview of who Lisa is. Lisa is an entrepreneur, a creative alchemist, based out in Byron Hinterland, Australia. She has over 30 years of experience in advertising and design, and she's kind of seen it all. You can ask her any question about advertising and design. She would definitely would have an answer. She has worked with some major brands, large brands such as Sotheby's, Toyota, Ray-Ban, Levi's, Penfold Wines, plus work with many smaller startups to bring new products to the market while bringing 4 successful businesses of her own. She has also done her master's in behavioral science of advertising and also been trained in Bernie Brown's Dare to Lead program. She currently serves as a business mentor for Australian government female founders program via Zoom for Australia Award Alumni, PNG, Female Initiative, facilitating and mentorship in leadership and confidence, and also runs a 2-day workshop in communication and confidence. So I want to welcome Lisa. Thank you so much for joining our conversation, and so nice to see you here. I wanted to start out with my first question, and I really want to know this. Why do you call yourself a creative alchemist? What inspired you to get into the business of advertising and design?
Thank you so much, Jason. It's lovely to be here today. Why am I a creative alchemist? For me, alchemy is when the traditional way of thinking is changing something from like lead to gold, but it's really changing perception, and that's what we do in advertising. Like, it's when 1+1 = 3 in advertising is when you really take someone to another level emotionally, and you actually change the game, even though. And that's for me what is alchemy, is making magic. And so that's why I call myself a creative alchemist. And why did I get into advertising and design? It was such a long time ago. I started off in science at university. I did genetics, and I did that for a couple of years. And I did actually art theory as a side subject, and I loved that. But I could not see myself wearing a white coat. When you're young, you just think silly things. I was like, I just could not see myself doing genetics. And so I loved art and design and just decided to change over into that. And it just sort of moved from there. But actually, my boyfriend at the time, that's what his brother-in-law was, a printer. And I just started doing work for him on the side. And that really was like, I think I'll do design, because I had no idea when I was 21 what I wanted to do.
That is
That's
super
really
cool. From genetics to design.
I know.
Okay, but I think design and advertising is the right place because you got so much wealth of information, and you have helped so many designers in the creative process just to understand business as a whole, and also the creative side of things. You're a true inspiration, Lisa. I must tell you that. So thank you for your contribution so far you have made in the industry, and also for designers like myself. I
Thank
Yeah, I wanted to ask you my next question. I wanted to understand your fascination with behavioral science. Now, why did you ended up taking your master's in behavioral science of advertising instead of marketing? Because most agency owners I have came across, or personally myself, I was thinking of doing marketing. Why did you do the behavioral science?
I think that's just been, it's evolved as I have worked. I'm very good at maths and solving problems. That's why I was doing genetics at uni. And I've always felt that that was my strength as a designer, not as an artist. I really think of myself as a problem solver, not actually a creative designer. I think it took me a long time to feel that I was actually the same as a lot of creatives in my industry, because I was just very good at computers. And so at the time when I studied design and went into, I studied design with no computers for 1 year. And because I'd already wasted time doing uni. And when you're young, you're like, I'm going to go and rush now into life. And then it was just design came over, but I never felt like I was a designer creative. I felt like I was more of a problem solver designer. So that just, I had just evolved. And I feel like the advertising is making people do things, and actually looking into it and working out. I did psychology at uni, and it's always fascinated me, like how the brain works. And I think that just evolved into my design work, thinking in that way. My daughter has autism, so that had developed as well through the me learning more about brains. And I think that in the end, it sort of, I didn't realize the journey, as you say, obstacles become the opportunities. But the journey of me learning more through learning about my daughter to help her really did, in the long term, benefit my work, because it just took me on another level of journey. I studied neuroscience and I met with doctors, like went to just learn more and more about how neurodiverse brains were working. But of course, that taught me more about neurotypical brains. And then I just went on the journey, and eventually led me to just a fascination with learning.
That
So
that
that's
is super
how,
cool,
what
Lisa.
took it. Is there a difference? Also, I believe that marketing, advertising, and sort of branding design are one. It's very hard to split them.
Yeah, did you did
That's
you
sort of one, and the
did you
one comes
experience
first. Then
any challenges there, because you had a, I mean, you knew about design, okay, but having that learning from behavioral science, were you able to apply that effectively and problem solve, your clients' needs as an agency? Did you had pushback from clients because you didn't have expertise in marketing?
I've never felt that I didn't have expertise in marketing. I felt like that's developed, as I said, as part of the triage of the process. Because there's no point having good design if no one knows about it. So it's sort of, as you're a business owner, I think I've worked for myself for over 20 years, and I had my studio for 17 years. I'm just closing it up right now. But you have to learn how to do marketing. It's so even as I'm working for myself and also then for my clients, I feel like it evolved. It was just you have to know marketing, otherwise there's no point being the best designer in the world and no one knows about you.
That is so
I
true.
Yes, that was. They all go together. I find it very hard to split them.
100%. Everything goes together, and I think it works as a complete cohesive system. And you kind of need everything to make it work and tick. So I appreciate that answer, and thank you so much for sharing and giving us a little heads up on what were you were doing while you were trying to do your education, moving from genetics to art and finally to behavioral science. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to start off with a quote before we deep dive into this discussion. Tony Robbins, a famous motivational speaker and coach, he says that setting up your goals is the first step of turning the invisible to visible. Now, we kind of shared the goal setting. We know the goal setting, a psychological definition, as a successful plan of action we set ourselves. It guides us to, take the right moves, choose the right moves at the right time in the right way. Now, and I feel when I was actually theoretically reading about goal setting and the psychology behind it, a lot of authors actually kept pointing on towards the subconscious mind and the power of it. So I wanted to understand your understanding the role of the subconscious mind when it comes to goal setting, and maybe you can share an example so that we can make this relatable to our listeners.
Thank you, Jason. The subconscious mind is really who's driving the train. So that's 90. The conscious mind may be 5% if you're lucky. 2 to 5% of actual choice is conscious. The majority of your choices are made subconsciously, and you're really just riding the elephant, and you're not driving. So I feel the subconscious mind is really the one making decisions, that is really in control. So it's so important with goals because it's driven emotionally. It's really important that you get in line with your subconscious mind, because otherwise you won't achieve your goals, because that is actually what's driving. You can say in your conscious mind, this is what I want to achieve, but unless you get that emotional connection over to your subconscious mind, I don't believe you will achieve your goals. So it is really key to make sure that your beliefs and your both sides of your brain, like your conscious and your subconscious, are aligned, I think, to achieve your goals.
I
Does
totally
that help?
agree. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So what you're saying is that the conscious mind should be aware of your goal, but you should instill this information even in your subconscious, so that you can make the right decisions to help you achieve that goal. How would you bridge that gap? How would you transition from moving information from your conscious mind to the subconscious mind?
The subconscious mind is driven, as I said, by emotions. So knowing why you want the goal, having that emotional attachment to how you feel afterwards, why you want to make the transformation, and it's making that emotional attachment to the change. That is really key to, then your subconscious mind will make that happen, because you're actually emotionally driving it, not like with your conscious mind critically driving. So that's why it is so
Mm.
important that you actually work out why you want to achieve something and how you're going to feel afterwards.
I like the fact that you specifically highlighted that it's very emotionally driven. Now, I stumbled upon, this article, and it's about marketing, and the person says that, most people, when it comes to making a purchase decision, it's very emotionally driven, and they justify it with logic. Is that the same reasoning here, Lisa? The same thing?
100%. Most people don't actually, when we're making a decision, if we had to decide every single time, like in a supermarket, there's over 40,000 products normally. So imagine for our mind, we have a filter, because it would be overwhelmed, which is, say, for my daughter, like the neurodiverse, that filter is letting in so much more information. And it's almost too much information for their brains, I believe. But with our filter, we're only letting in what's important to our subconscious brain, because otherwise we'd be overwhelmed. And imagine walking in the supermarket and having to see every single, make a decision. Which one shall I buy? We don't do that. They've measured through neuroscience now, which is pretty amazing. Since 2016, they've been able to just start measuring this sort of thing. 7 seconds before you even think the answer, they can tell you which one you're going to choose, because your subconscious mind already knows before you decide which one you're choosing. So the decision is made, and then you just grab it off the shelf and you think, oh, I want that because of this, with your little critical mind. But the decision was already made. So when you ask people, why did you do that? Because they were really deciding with their subconscious mind. Then their critical mind clicks in and they're like, why did I do that? And they'll give you like the best answer of why they think they did it. But very often you'll find if you're actually question it, like interviewing people, that first answer is not the correct answer. It's just what they think is the right answer.
Yeah.
So you don't really know what you think. You don't know why you're doing automatically driven until you sort of stop yourself and then you go, oh, I've got to decide. And then we're sort of stand in front of the supermarket shelves, sort of wandering for 5 minutes, thinking about it. But we definitely don't do that over every decision or every choice we make in life, because you'd never get anywhere.
Absolutely.
So we're
Absolutely.
just driven.
Go ahead, Lisa. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you back there.
No, just that is who's driving. I think if you imagine it as there's two ways they say, almost like a Homer and a Yoda. But the Yoda, it's the Homer seems like it's the lazy brain, but it's really not lazy. It's just working on automatic. And it's different, I think, from being lazy. I don't really like that analogy. I think the sitting on top of an elephant riding, if you just imagine yourself, you're tiny and the subconscious brain is the one that's actually driving through, is the elephant. Sort of,
That's
if that
very,
helps.
very insightful, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing that. And along with that example, I wanted you to break down some of these complexities with entrepreneurial goal setting. And even at this stage, I also face challenges sometimes when it comes to goal setting. So let's use some of your learning from behavioral science, and let's use that to break down these complexities. What would you recommend to the audience? How to set them, when to set them, how to fix them if you run into issues? How do you know when to stop pursuing them?
Well, most importantly is obviously working out why you want to do something. What is the driver for you? Why do you want the outcome? I think that's really key, first of all, is spending time to work that out. And I think another really important thing to remember is our brain is, it's only, for most people, approximately, say, 2 kilos in their body. It's taking like 20% of the energy use. It's huge energy source drainage for our bodies. So it's constantly trying to keep it on power save. It's like your battery on your phone. It's like we don't want to run out of battery here. So if we keep you in power save most of the time, if suddenly you need a surge of power, we're ready to go. So the fight or flight, if a tiger came, we'd be ready to run. So it really wants to keep that energy usage as low as possible, because in terms of organs, the brain is huge with what it's draining with energy. So it's really important to remember that brain really wants to run on habit. So when we learn something new, it feels uncomfortable. We're critically learning it and we thinking about it, and it seems really quiet. It takes a lot of energy for our brain. But as we get better and as we learn it more and more and it becomes familiar to us, the brain shifts it over into a habit. And those habits become, so if I went and played tennis, my brain would be going mental because I'm really not good at sport. Whereas a professional tennis player, you would think they're so good, they'd be using higher energy. Their brain's just working on habit mode, so it uses hardly any energy. Once it shifts it into a habit, it doesn't have to use that sort of brain power thinking anymore. So it constantly also wants you to be in habit mode. Your thoughts would be habits. Everything you do is a habit, because it keeps the whole system efficient. So that is what, as an entrepreneur, you've got to remember. Your system wants you to continue doing things that feel the same because it doesn't take energy. And so when you start doing a new thing, a new goal, a new pathway, as you're working to that goal, we very quickly, if we're not paying attention, can flick back into habit mode, because really it's energy efficient. So it's like, get back into that power save. And interestingly, I think for a lot of people, what I've realized is they don't feed their mind with like any energy source. So if you went out for the day and said, I'm going to climb, we're going to go drive to the top of Australia today, that's my goal. But as it gets to 12 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you've basically got no fuel in your tank. So it's impossible for you to get there. It's like, where's the energy source? Where's the sugar? Where's the glucose? Especially water, dehydration is really, so the brain goes, you better get back onto that habit track. So when people say are dieting and they get to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it just all goes pear-shaped, because their brain's just like, no, you get back onto that normal way of eating, because even though that's crap for you, we prefer that because it takes no energy for you to be in that state. So we'll flick you over into that. So as an entrepreneur, I think the paying attention to me is the most important thing from all my coaching and everything that I've watched. So many people, they're enthusiastic at the beginning, but so quickly they'll just flick back into habit mode and they're not paying attention, and another 2 months has gone by. And then they're like, oh, actually, yeah, I did want to achieve that, but they weren't paying attention. They were just continuing to do things the normal way that they were doing things, which would not lead them up the right mountain, is what you'll find. They stay on the mountain because it's easier.
Okay, so what I'm understanding here is that this brain going to this habit mode, or unconsciously going to this habit mode, it has positive effects. It also has negative effects, because a while back you said a person who has been playing tennis for a really long time may just get into the habit of doing a good shot, or playing it really well, because the person has been habituated to it. On the other hand, your brain can be programmed in a certain way to tune out of things when you're trying to do something, which is slightly different, like, setting up a new goal. It wants to go back to the comfort zone. Am I understanding this right? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, it wants to stay on the path of least resistance because that is what it's used to, and it takes very little energy. So if you imagine it's a conveyor belt, it's just moving along easy. It's like trying to jump off the conveyor belt, and that takes energy. As you know, you're fighting against getting off that conveyor belt. You jump off it, you continue on your journey, but if you don't have an energy at that first beginning bit when you're building new momentum and new habit tracks, it takes effort. It's hard to learn to play tennis. Then it takes energy. Our brain's got to compute what's going on. But once it goes, okay, you've done that enough times, we've moved that onto a conveyor belt track, so you don't have to think about that one anymore. Every time the ball moves there, we know where we're going. Then it takes very little energy to do that. And it's just making sure that you've got enough. I believe it is an energy-driven thing, is most people set themselves up. They don't set themselves up for success. If you were going to climb Everest, or you were going to try and make those sort of big goals, you need to have fuel in your tank. So for me, the core thing is you're never going to achieve them if you do not make sure you put petrol in the tank that's ideally good quality. And also make sure that you can look after yourself in the afternoon, like having glucose, having water. Like I would have dried fruit at 2 o'clock, or I sometimes have like a hot chocolate with mushrooms, like, and just giving yourself food to fuel that energy, to fuel those changes, to keep you going. We get that slump in the afternoon, especially. Majority of people are dehydrated with no glucose in their brain, which is what it needs. And I think that's why people go off track in the afternoon and they don't actually get as much done as they need to, because their brain is like, I'm going on conveyor belt time here. You're giving me nothing. Yeah, my friend. So I like, really, energy is key to making those, because we can think of something and say, yes, that's what we want to do. It needs action. It needs energy to drive it. Everything in life needs energy, I believe. We are molecules. We are energy. So keeping that energy and vibration, and that's how you make change. and that does involve then putting petrol in the car, that will keep you going. That helps the game, really gives you, so it's much easier if you were climbing a mountain, if you know that someone, is giving you some food as you keep going, is giving you what you need to maintain your vehicle. So that is what is really, it is one of the keys that maybe when I was younger, I didn't realize was so important. Like looking after yourself is part of winning, instead of just using up all the energy and you think, I'll keep going. So taking those breaks, making sure that you actually reboot your computer, as you know, that does help. Most things work when we turn them on and off again. My mum always runs over, my phone's not working. I'm like, have you turned it on and off before you ran over to my house telling me you needed fixing? And she's like, oh no. And I'm like, switch on and off. Suddenly your phone starts again. And you find out, she never hasn't turned it off for 3 months. Like, that's why, because all that backlog of things that I had to remember in the background. So it ends up just going, I'm shutting down, my friend. And I think if you imagine that phone, that's what's happening in your brain. That helps, I hope.
I want to just, emphasize on what you said. So the most important component here is to identify, okay, why you want to pursue this goal. That's number one. Second, identify where you want to reach with this. Have a very, very clear, curated goal. Doesn't mean it has to be very, very accurate or precise, but but have at least some sort of information just to shape it, so that it's pretty clear on what you want to achieve. And then you said that be consistent with it. And the last thing you said is to feed the mind with the right fuel. There are two attributes which you highlighted from it: feeding the mind with the right fuel. One is self-care, that is you taking reboot time to look after yourself while you are pursuing this. And the second one is to have enough knowledge and information fed to the mind, so that you can harness and try to achieve that goal. Am I getting this right?
Yes, you are, my friend. That is correct. That feeding your mind, as we were talking about energy before, we are molecules. Like our mind is 98%, like basically the 5 base elements. So there's some a little mixture of these other little weird things, but majority of us is like oxygen, carbon, your base elements, the same as plants. And if you think about plants growing, they can survive inside, but they would never thrive and bear fruit. They would never bloom and bear flowers because they're not getting everything they need. They're not getting sunshine. Then they don't have everything they need to really bloom. And as humans, it's really important that we make sure we have everything we want if you want to bear fruit, if you want to start really going prolific as a plant. You would need to make sure it was in the right position. It was actually had the right food it needed. So if you think of yourself, like when I'm coaching, I'm like, think of yourself as a plant. Like, are you taking the time to go outside and get some sunshine, food and water? We are nature, I believe, and getting that energy right is one of the keys, beginning steps. It really is quite an easy thing to do, which people seem to be missing in life, which is go outside, connect with nature, and just let yourself have some sunshine and fresh air. And I really do believe that when I was younger, it was like food and, whatever you do for food is really key, you're thinking. Because all you need is food and water to live. But food and water is all you need to live if you want to survive. But if you actually want to thrive and bloom, you need sunshine. You need to be outside and you need to have fresh air. So I believe that's really one of the core things to actually succeeding in life is doing less achieves more. And it takes time to realize that. But that is, I think, really one of the keys to get started, making sure that you're it's such a little thing that you just go outside every day, but it can make a key difference to you achieving your results. Because
Absolutely.
sunshine is like a free source of energy. If you think of it as like heat energy coming into you, it can recharge you like you're restarting your computer. And just having 5 minutes outside and recharging before you start again in the afternoon, or before you move forward in the beginning of the day, just reboot, breathe, be with nature. It will make a huge difference to the results you get. So I like to say, think like a plant. Make sure you're ready to bloom, and you're setting yourself up. As humans, we get to move into the right position. Sometimes you're surrounded by, you're in the mud. You're never going to grow, and you're never going to have flower. And if we say like teenagers, they've gone down into the slums, they've gone into the mud pot and slosh of earth. They're not going to bloom there. But we have the choice to move ourselves from those situations and get into a position where we can thrive and be surrounded as you are. And we're connected with people. I believe you connect with people who are on the same energy level, who are moving, and you get that choice as humans, which is wonderful. Set yourself up for success so you will win your goals is very key. And a lot of entrepreneurs or young people are just thinking the doing is what's going to get them there. But it's actually making sure that they were energized and taking that time every day, because otherwise you'll jump back into habit mode. So that paying attention, if you went outside and you're like, am I doing something that's leading me towards my goals today? You'll be like, no, I'm just distracting myself with all the normal crap. And then you're like, okay, what do I need to do that's going to actually make sure I'm on that path towards my goal? I really did like what you said about, because I feel sometimes as well when I'm coaching, especially as I do group coaching at the future, lots of times people are like, I don't know what my goal is. We're not sure where we want to go in life. And it stops them taking action. It's been so long thinking. It's like, what's my niche? I don't know. So I won't do anything because I don't know what my niche is. I can't do anything. I don't know what my goal is. So I just sort of blur along. But you can just it's about pointing your compass in the right direction. Because I guarantee, as I've been on life and I've climbed lots of different mountains, which at the time felt like that was the mountain. Like I'm climbing Everest right now. Then you get there and wow, even halfway up, you see so much more than you saw from the bottom of the mountain. And that adjusts your whole perspective on life, because you're now halfway up the mountain. And that can shift your whole goals. As me, like starting off in design, starting off in science, and then shifting over as my options opened up and different things came into my life. I didn't even think of being a problem solver or a designer when I was at school. To be honest, I don't know why it never crossed my mind. But it was just, I did maths 1 and 2, science and chem. That's what I did. And I did do design as actually, design was my fun subject. And I think my parents actually, as parents, like obviously I was good at science. So everyone was like, that's what you're going to do. And when I did design, I did fight to do that in my final year of school. And I actually didn't do English because they let me drop English to keep design, because everyone was like, oh, that doesn't matter because you're so good at maths. You'll definitely be doing maths. And I love design, but it was considered my fun subject. That wasn't really something that my mind considered was actually a job. And as I went on my journey, I realized the goalpost changed as you start climbing the mountain. So it's more important you prepare and you pay attention on the journey and keep looking around. Because if you pay attention on the way, there's shortcuts sometimes come by. Some people I find they're so focused on their goals and they're looking ahead, and opportunities are right in front of them, but their mind is so focused on what they think is important, that they miss the opportunities that are on the side because the filter can't let them in because they don't even believe they're there, and they're just so focused on something else that the brain's like, well, I won't let that information in because that's obviously not important to you. You're head down doing this, and that's habit for us. We're good with that. So the opportunities I can sometimes see right in front of people, but they weren't really paying attention to what was going on in the present moment. They were looking ahead in the future. I'm going to be happy when I get to the top of the mountain, and they missed the journey.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate you sharing all of this. And one of the things, which is like was a really big takeaway from me is that you need sunshine. So I have written
Good.
this.
It's the most important thing. Be like a tree. Get some sunshine and just stand there and let it charge you. And when even people say to me, I've got a lot of energy. I've run 5 businesses. My daughter's got autism, and I do a lot of different charity work and volunteer work. But I'm like, it's an endless source of energy. The world is out there with sunshine that's free for everybody. But majority people are ignoring even the source.
So
please go on.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing this, Lisa. I really love the answer about your sunshine, and you do have lots and lots of energy, which I've not only seen now, but also whenever I had conversations with you, especially when you used to do rooms with Adam. Brilliant, you guys used to have such lovely conversations every now and then. My concern, the thing which is actually concerning me is what you said about sometimes we get so blinded by the goal that you don't see opportunities which are just right in front of you. I just wanted to understand that generally speaking, goals are supposed to make you very, very clear as to what you want to achieve, and it is supposed to keep you alert. But how does one move from being alert to be completely blinded by the goal?
Well, because of this filter letting in, it lets in what supports our beliefs and what would help us achieve. It really wants us to win. So it's letting in whatever we believe. It's letting in information to support that belief. So, say for example, my girlfriend wants to buy a house. So every weekend she goes out looking for a house. But every weekend she tells me before she does it, it's impossible to find a house. There's nothing out there. It's impossible. I keep looking, but there's nothing there. I'm like, well, welcome to your impossible house looking. Because she believes it's impossible to find a house. So that is actually what is being shown to her. It's impossible to find a house. So for me, that's a crazy thing to think. Because if you believe that, you're never going to find one. Whereas I believe might get really clear on what you want for a house, and that energy of knowing what you want, it actually leads you I've never looked for a house. I just find a house with this what I want.
Find
Which
the
sounds
house
really weird.
which is possible.
It sounds really weird. It goes, one of the things from studying science, I've also studied woo-woo, all the manifesting and, all the different belief systems. I'm very curious. And I've realized it's having that belief. If you believe that that is correct, well, that is what's driving it. So if you get that belief from magic, if you get that belief from crystals, if you get that belief from faith in God, it doesn't matter where you get the belief from. It's the belief that's driving the decisions, or letting that filter let things in that supports them. So if you don't believe you're going to be able to climb that mountain, if you don't believe that you're really going to get there, it won't really show you ways to get there, because it's I'm not going to bother, because you're not really thinking you're going there. It's not important really to you. So our brain having this filter, because like I said, it can only let in 2 to 5% of what's going on around you. It only can let in what's important to you. And when you listen to people's words and you listen to really what they believe, very often that is messing them up. So that is why it's really
Mm-hmm.
key to get clear on what you want.
Okay, so
And I think that's with
focus.
goals. Yeah, focus on what you want, the direction of where you want to go. Prepare, like you're deciding to climb Everest, you prepare, you get the direction.
Mm-hmm.
But as you start on the journey, pay attention to where you are in the present moment. The journey is the key, not the outcome, because what will happen, as I said, the goalposts, they'll change the goalposts. The outcome isn't really important because guaranteed, as we know, we evolve and we get older, we want different things.
Yeah, so true. So true. Because most people, I think the mistake, and including myself, the mistake which we are doing is that we are so focused on the goal, the precise point of the goal, that we stop embracing the journey towards it. And we also stop acknowledging the fact that as you grow, as it takes time for you to reach your goal, your interest, your hobbies, your personal preferences, as you said, keeps evolving and changing. What you may have liked a few years back may not be something which you like today. So the goalpost, as you correctly said, it keeps shifting and moving to different areas. So the focus should not be on like a pre-defined goal. Maybe like you said, have a compass to guide you into that direction. Know what exactly you need, okay, but don't uh, get so brainwashed that this is the only thing and get blindsided. Right, Lisa?
That's correct. That's correct. It's like, don't live in the future where you are with, or you're thinking, oh, in the future, I'll be happy. In when I've done all this, I know this is, we just keep, I think I've done this where you've just kept going for that goal and then you get there and you're like, I didn't even want this. And I hadn't even paid attention to find out if I really wanted it. As I've been going in this direction, I've just kept going because I was thinking, one, it's like it's hard to turn around. Also, it takes a lot of vulnerability to say to people, I was wrong. This is the wrong mountain I'm climbing. You got to climb down and walk past all those people who are sitting at the bottom who you told, I'm going to make that, and say, actually, I was wrong and I'm going up a different mountain. And one of the shames, people like, I don't want to look bad. So they continue climbing up a mountain that is not actually leading them to something that is going to give them joy. And they're just living, and it's not living in the moment, because it's having joy in the moment is the key. If you're missing, like I said, we don't know what's going to happen. That's what I think it holds people back. They one thing don't make a goal because they're like, I don't know where I want to go. And it's like, you don't have to, as long as you've got a general direct. I'm talking about long-term goals. I think that's the difference. Goals are very useful to help you get off that conveyor belt, to take small steps, because otherwise, as I said, it's too much energy for our brain if you do it all at once. But taking those little small steps and saying, this is my goal for the week, this is where I want to go in direction, what do I need to do to get there? Okay, bring it back to now. Let's start taking action and paying attention to the now. But making sure that you're paying attention, that you're looking around on the journey and looking for those little diamonds that are sparkling that were on the side of the road that you didn't realize. Looking for those little shortcuts because you met someone who was a Sherpa and they're going to show you how to get around the back of the mountain. So it's paying attention and living in the moment then becomes key, I think. And getting started, like with that momentum of energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Focus, prepare where you are and where you want to go. And then, okay, don't miss the sunshine. And whenever you are exploring or trying to achieve your goal or in the process in that journey, do not forget to look around, because opportunity might be right there and you're just missing out on it. So thank you so much for sharing this, Lisa. I stumbled upon this article, which I have also shared with you. It's about a professor, with a clickbaity title, "What a Human Behavior Professor Won't Tell You About Goal Setting." Okay, and he starts off his article states, "It's easy to set goals, reaching them is difficult. Because people often misunderstand the process of goal setting, how to change for better. As a human behavior professor, people inadvertently set themselves to fail." Now, his analysis, he states a couple of pointers here. I want to start off with the first one. The first one, he states that trying to motivate yourself usually does not work. And I have this thought because, Lisa, because, sometimes, and most of the times, we are not always 100% motivated all the time to pursue and achieve our dreams. Sometimes things go sideways. We become very upset and annoyed with certain things, maybe because of you or because of somebody else. So being motivated all the time is next to impossible. So I just wanted to see what was your perspective on it. Do you kind of agree with him, or is there a solution to this?
There is, I think, being motivated. For me, it's like, no, motivation is you really want to go back into that power save mode. And, it feels much more, if I'm used to sitting on the couch every afternoon watching TV, then my brain's going to go back and do that. But that sort of, it's much easier for us to do the same thing because it's hard work doing the new things. And so that's why we do lose motivation, because I think they make too big a goal. That's what making a little small goal and building in step by step work. That's when I think goals work. The long-term picture is for me a compass, but short-term is, okay, if I look and think in the future, I really want to be a geneticist. I would think I need to go to university. I look at people around me and think, how did those people get to that position? What did they do? And I would then say, I needed to achieve this academic achievement. So then I could set a goal, I'm going to do this. But on that journey, like me, 2 years into it, I'm looking around and I'm like, this isn't where I wanted to go. And you can pivot and start climbing a new mountain. It's okay. But a lot of people lose motivation and just move back to the original mountain. And that takes, as you said, when you said, oh, you get angry and you get upset because things aren't going your way, really. It's hard. So it's a roller coaster life gives us. We make these goals. A very good story is I've been, as you said, mentoring in Papua New Guinea for 3 years now. And we get given, like at the beginning of each year, we get given a mentee, and we have the program that's actually run with those girls. I believe those relationships then are lifetime relationships because you've obviously developed that relationship with them. So my lovely, they're so clever, such a clever young lady. She's got 3 degrees. She's really actually overeducated for, especially in her country as a woman. So struggled with confidence with the male industry that she was in, engineering. And she booked a time with me, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Like, I haven't really spoke to her. We message, but I haven't really had a session with her for over a year at least. But I was like, okay, cool. Okay, there's a Zoom booked in, and jump in. And she went on and she told me how she was doing all of, what I told her. And she'd been interviewing people, and she was really stepping up as a leader and has done so well. But she's fallen in love. She's fallen in love, and all her goals have gone out the window. And she's like, what do I do? What do I do? It's all gone out the window. She said, I've met a boy. And I started giggling because it's like in life, there's never a right time to, have a baby. There's never a right time to, actually one of the young girls who I met the other day, she's an archaeologist. And she said, like, that's all I wanted to do. And then I fell in love and met my husband. And my life changed. She was like, I was never going to have children. I was never going to do anything. I was going to be, Indiana Jones. But she fell in love and it changed the game. It changed the game even for me when you're imagining your life. You know, I believe in Disney and magic, so I'm pretty positive. So happily ever after you get married, when you have a child who's neurodiverse, it's not the same journey that you'd made in your little brain of, you know, the happy ever after. It's a new journey. I'm on a roller coaster. And I don't believe we can control that roller coaster, but we get to choose how we spend our energy and we get to choose how we react to the roller coaster. And some people choose to be on the roller coaster with their arms waving high, you know, cheering and having fun with all the ups and downs because they know there's always going to be another up. But some people are on the roller coaster with their eyes closed and never looking, and then they just feel sick and get off and vomit. But you actually get to choose which one, how you respond to those emotions that are coming into your body. You can't control the ups and downs, but you can choose your reaction. And that's where I think it's really important to remember when you're getting angry and wasting time with other people, that's wasting your energy source. So as I've got older, it's like I don't have judgment. I can't control things I can't control. Go on the ride because you don't know where they're taking you. But as you said with behavioral science at the beginning, I have no idea. It was just how I got here. I just went on this roller coaster ride. And I ended up studying behavioral science of advertising. It's a journey, and all those little things that I thought, like even when I was learning about, you know, when I was learning about autism and I was going to workshops, it felt hard at the time. It really felt hard. But then when I look back, when you're older and you look back and you're like, well, that was useful, wasn't it? And even university that I thought was a complete waste of time. I was annoyed even at my parents for making me go there. You know, I was like, I just wasted 2 years of my life studying science for no reason. And or quite had felt for like held that on really. It probably weighed me down, especially early on in my career, because I didn't do a degree in design. It was really the fact that I was very good on computers, and that's what happened as I entered the world of design. Everyone went on a computer. And being a math science nerd, I was wanted because majority of people at that point, you know, they'd done art through school. So they had no idea what a computer was like. But being the little geek that I was, I'd been using one since I was 11 and was coding. So that is where my strength really shined then. But it was like, I wish I'd done design. I didn't feel creative. And that sort of weighed me down and stopped me, I feel, early on. Stopped me asking for help because I always felt like I had to prove something. You know, like I have to prove I can do this and not let people know I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like early on, it just feels like you don't know. And putting on that act of like, I don't ask for help because then people will know I'm no good. Instead of understanding that it just takes so much courage to say, I don't know this. And it's totally fine. But when we're younger, you carry through those extra things that you just didn't need to be carrying. It's like excess luggage, I call it. We start carrying suitcases of crap, bringing it with us. And when you start climbing that mountain with all the crap on you, that's hard work too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing all of that, Lisa. You know, it's always so nice to listen to you, and I can go on and just listen. At the same time, I also wanted to ask you another question. Okay, the article I was referring to, the author also states that it's good to be pessimistic, and he calls this defensive pessimism. And he says that this can be very, very beneficial because vividly imagining challenges can help you strategize and creatively problem solve. Obstacles inevitably arise on the path towards reaching your goal. So he suggests coming up with if and then contingencies. to make it work. What are your thoughts on this?
I think that's a good, I think it's a good idea to be finding the best solution. So with creativity, in order for our brain to, creativity happens in our subconscious brain. And when I was saying about feeding our mind food, also we need to feed it information, quality information, and looking how other people have achieved it, what mistakes are out there, what pitfalls did they do. Feeding your mind with that information, and then your mind plays with it and bends and breaks it and comes up with a solution that it thinks is the best for you. It's constantly like in debate, is this the right thing for me? Trying to make decisions, that's what our brain's doing all the time. Which decision is the right decision for us? That's all we can really do, because there isn't really any right answers. It's all, it's all a game, my friend. So you're just trying to make a decision, and our brain feels much happier when we make a decision. So that's why it's good with a goal. You decide where you're going. It's like when you are beginning a journey and you've got no idea, have you? But then you go, oh no, I'm going to go straight home to UK first. And suddenly my body relaxes. It's like, I know where I'm going. It's fine. I know my first leg of the journey. And I've made that choice and decision. It stops being such a in our brain. The indecision is wasting energy. But once you start taking that step towards England, you end up, somewhere else, and you can take a detour. It's okay. And I think that's where people miss. And that's where he's saying I don't like to think that as pessimistic. I think it's about sort of like with design thinking, we go wide. When we want to solve a problem, we go wide first. We feed that information into our mind of all the different solutions that there could be. And then we converge in and make make the best decision that we think we're making with that information. So I don't believe that's pessimistic. I feel that's gathering information and being aware that there's lots of different, I think that's being prepared
Mm-hmm.
for different outcomes. But I don't actually, if you believe that it's going to turn out not going to happen, which I would say is pessimistic, well, then obviously it won't happen, because the subconscious already has told you, you don't believe it can happen.
Yeah, yeah, because you're focusing on that it's not gonna happen, and that's what
Yeah,
you're
that's
attracting your
out to me.
mind to. You're focusing
Yeah,
towards that, and you will keep seeing the same thing that it's not happening.
that is right. When I was learning to drive, I remember the driver instructor saying, stop looking at the curb, because where you look is where you go. Like you didn't want to hit the edge. And because I'm looking at the curb, wondering and worrying where it is all the time, I'm really kept steering my wheel towards it, because my eye, my hands are following my eyes where I keep looking. So I don't think you want to be looking at the negative. And so to me, that's pessimistic. But I do believe exploring all options, that's how we create. And I think we're going to see a lot of acceleration in innovation because of the way we've been able to connect as a species through Zoom. So imagine if Einstein and Edison could get together and have a chat on Clubhouse. So then that information is being shared, and it's like more information in my brain. It's more tools for it to work with, more quality ingredients to it to find a new solution. But if you notice with most innovations, you can go back 10 years and there was a similar innovation that just didn't make it. It wasn't the right time then and there, or they evolve. They don't really come from nowhere. There's normally a path that you can trace it back to. So that's why innovation is by feeding your mind with quality ingredients, one, physical, but also what you put in your mind is going to affect your beliefs. So be careful about what you watch and listen to.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm with you completely there, Lisa. The author also points another argument. He states that the SMART goal model does not really work. Are you familiar with this model by any chance?
I
Specific.
am familiar. I would be on his side too.
Okay, why is that?
I know
Why is that?
saying like it's too rigid. But I think what I would say it's useful for. I mean, when I work with Dr. Leslie, everyone teaches that model. Yeah, and they're doctors and scientists, so I'm not. But I believe it's too rigid. But it is a good way to get you to pay attention, to bring you into that moment, to actually break down. So I see it as a tool that's useful for that, but I don't believe it's necessary if you were already in the present moment. It's just a tool to help you break it down and make you actually aware. But I'm not 100% clear that you would have to do it. I think knowing your values is really key, because even though we're saying our different things can change our beliefs, and we can, hopefully people are open their mind enough to be flexible. It's the flexibility on approach and being open that you might be wrong. And some people are not open to that belief. They don't want to be wrong. It feels too uncomfortable. And so because of that, I don't want to be wrong, they block out a lot of stuff because they don't want to feel uncomfortable in themselves on being wrong on what I've chosen to believe. It doesn't feel nice when our brain struggles with that it can't believe two core beliefs at once. Really, it can flick between them, but again, then we're in indecision mode and it makes us feel uncomfortable. So it likes to settle on one belief and thought. And for me, as my goal is to make people celebrate diversity of thought and diversity of people. But a lot of people, when they see different or change because of that feeling uncomfortable, they fear it. Like they fear the roller coaster. So they're just like, I'm not even getting on that ride. I'm not even going there, my friend. I'm staying on that bloody roundabout that just goes round and round because it's boring as shit, but it's actually consistent. And I don't have to feel weird or scared on it. But I think the fun in life is getting on the roller coaster and wave those arms up high. But that is actually a choice of people, obviously, because I like rolling roller coasters. I've also now I'm old. I've realised as well the people who are on the merry-go-round, they're not wrong. That's just they like the ride that's on the merry-go-round. Just because I don't like it, it's not wrong. So everyone has different. That's also understanding our minds. Our perception on what we're letting in on a filter is based on what we believe. So the strangest, weirdest thing is everyone's thinking different things, even though they're seeing the same picture as you. And it's really hard to get I think being aware of that, it's like you never know what's going on in someone else's mind. You can only control yours. You only know what's going on in yours. It's impossible to guess. A lot of people spend a lot of energy worrying about what other people's minds are doing and making assumptions and making their decisions based on what they think other people's minds are doing, instead of actually taking the time to look internally and thinking, what's my mind doing? It's almost easier to look at other people's minds. As we know, when you're even branding yourself, it's hard, isn't it? You've got to look inside and think, what's my values? I don't know. Have I got any? Like, I don't know. It's hard work when you're looking inside. But when I'm looking at you and I'm talking to you, it's very quickly easy for me to judge because I don't have emotional attachment to you. I can sort you out really quickly. But with my own internal and my own branding, it's like much harder because I have those emotions that make me feel uncomfortable when I think, oh, is that who I really am? Am I like accepting who you are is actually, you say, yeah, that is who you really are. You're crap at that. It's okay. You're not less because of it. Now let's move on and stop wasting energy on it. So I think our mind goes round in circles. It's normal. That's the other thing. We're always fight or flight. Survival is our key. They want us to survive. So it's much nicer if you stay safe and stay on a conveyor belt because it keeps you alive.
Absolutely.
But that's, the brain likes a roundabout. The roundabout is good for it. It's like, this is easy and fun. I think you have to force it to go on the roller coaster. And that's really what he's saying. It's like the feeling uncomfortable is part of the ride.
Absolutely. Thank you so
We've
much for
gone off
sharing
track.
that. I wanted to actually see if Thomas is available. Thomas has actually joined us on LinkedIn. So, Thomas, if you're available and if you like to ask Lisa a question, feel free. This is the time. I also wanted to welcome Karen. Karen, if you're interested in joining the stage over LinkedIn audio, feel free to do that. Lisa, we would be starting to do Q&A. So if you guys have questions, nothing like it. If not, I'm just gonna ask a few more questions, and we would do rapid fire and wrap up the show. Thomas, are you there? Okay, he might not be available. Okay, but
No, I'm here. I'm here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Lisa. I had one question for Lisa. I just want to say it was worth staying up and listening to all your amazing, amazing statements about goal setting, psychology, and everything. And I guess I just want to say I like the roller coaster. I don't like the merry-go-round. And the reason I like the roller coaster is because I like interesting things, and I find the merry-go-round a bit boring. I was on a merry-go-round for 50 years, and I've stepped on the roller coaster about maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm enjoying it. And maybe it's a new lease of life. Maybe it's a second midlife crisis. Who knows? But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm enjoying it. But my question to you, Lisa, is I'm fascinated in motivation behind people and individuals, especially interesting individuals. And I find you very interesting. I've only obviously known about you for about a week. But my question is, what drove you to do what you're doing now versus what you did when you say 21?
Interesting question. I actually, when I looked at my values and when I did the Brené Brown training, very much have to look internally first. Like, what is driving me? What am I judging people on? Reacting to feedback before I can give good feedback as a leader. And my values were kindness and curiosity. To me, I'm like you, a curious human. I'm curious. That's what drives me. And I think I'm blessed to have a core belief in knowing that I know that I'm smart and I can solve problems. So wherever you throw me, I'm going to be okay because I can learn how to do it. And I think that the confidence is knowing that wherever that roller coaster is going to go, I'll be okay because of me, not because where I land. And I mean, I'm constantly learning and growing and evolving. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. And it's fun. And I think that I realized, I stopped work when I was 26. I'd already started running my own side business. I believe almost that core, it was always there, and that's still what drives me now, is curiosity and like connecting with other humans. And I'm really on for the ride. I'm on for the ride. I don't know exactly where I'm going. So I don't think there's a real difference from when I was 21. I'm driven by curiosity, and now I'm 50. I'm still the same. And I think there was a period of my life where I let other people control. I reacted to, I didn't take control of my own reactions.
Yeah.
And then I realized I could take control of that, and I had a choice on how I reacted to what was going on. And then that was just the game changer. And then also understanding I was energy and I needed to be vibrating at the highest. It was interesting. Suddenly it clicked went like straight back to university, and I was like, yes, I'm molecules. And then as I was like thinking, I was like, so is food. So the food I'm eating is molecules, the same thing. I want to be eating molecules that are vibrating. So I take them up to 3, it's like high vibrations. But, you know, if we just let it sit there, we just get slower and slower. And as it rots, eventually fruit. So it changed my whole outlook on life. Was like, I don't need to worry about anything else. I need to worry about my reactions, what's driving me, and make sure that I'm got high energy. You know, I'm feeding my body and making sure I'm enjoying the ride. So that actually is what changed it up. But I'm driven the same. I feel like I'm driven in the same way as where I was when I was younger. Does that answer the question?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And yeah, I think, yeah, I can see your answer kind of in me. I mean, I think we all sort of semi on the same path, and I think I've always been curious as well. I think I was curious when I left school, you know, in year 12, and I went to England for a year because I didn't want to go straight to university. I think my curiosity said, hey, I want to travel. And a lot of people thought, oh, what are you doing that? You need to go straight into university and you need to be on the learning curve. And I think I learned more about life, you know, spending 6 months working as a silver service waiter in Essex in England. A lot more than doing first year economics and accounting at Monash University in Melbourne. So it's, yeah, I think yeah, you answered my question. Thanks.
Yes, no, I think it's having the courage to go overseas and go on an unknown journey. It's having the courage to get on the roller coaster. That's what I realize is the willingness to fail, the willingness to go into that unknown, and be confident enough to know that you'll be able to learn. And as you said, travel, I believe. I sent my son away. He started an apprenticeship when he lost school, and then it was too much for him working 5 days a week. It wasn't for him. At 18, he
Yeah.
told me that. And I laughed and said, well, what do you think you want to do? And he said, I think I want to be a racing car driver. And I was like, oh my God, are you 5? So I then said, I think you need to travel. Because I do also believe, as we're saying, feeding our mind. I grew up in Africa. I grew up in Dubai and from London originally. So I was blessed with a very diverse upbringing. I went to 7 different schools, which I think gives you confidence going to different places. And my son had been in Gold Coast, Australia for his whole life and thought that was normal. And just so you understand,
and it's not.
if you don't, it's far from normal. Where I live, it's paradise. I live in paradise. And it's holiday. It's a holiday vacation based place. It's amazing. We live on acreage at the back of the hinterland. It's been, you know, an amazing, he's had a very, very privileged life. But to him, that's normal. And that did upset me. Not in a, but I was like, go overseas, because when you travel, you realize we're privileged.
Yeah, totally.
And, you know, my daughter got to change schools and she got into a university program, and it didn't really suit her being in the same private school. We had a lot of problems, but for her, she actually got to see both sides of the coin, which I think is a privilege, where you've seen how one side who is completely privileged live, and another side where people have only got one pair of shoes. And that gives you those, you know, opening your perspectives and walking with other people, and richens your tapestry, I believe. And that's what travel does for you. I really think it feeds people's minds way more than education.
Yeah, well, yeah, totally. I mean, I've got a 16-year-old son who's quite privileged, and he thinks he owns the world, and but he's 16 and he's the center of his own universe. And I said to him, maybe I shouldn't have, but I said, well, when I was a year older than you, I went to England for a year, and I had to do my own washing, and I had to do my own ironing, and I had to feed myself, and I had to get my own glass of water. And everything else. And he kind of looked at me and said, "Gee, did you do that, Dad, at 17? I can't even imagine doing that." And it's like, well, as you said, travel broadens the mind. It shows you how lucky we are living, in our case, Australia, but whether you live in Australia or America or India or wherever, but it makes you appreciate your own surroundings, and then you can then do other things and see how the other people live. And he missed out on the opportunity to build huts in Thailand for underprivileged people because of COVID and stuff, which, it's a pity but COVID robbed a lot of people of a lot of things. But hopefully he'll get opportunities after he finishes school to broaden his mind, as
He
opposed to
will.
just straight into university.
It's quite fun to watch, believe me. It's quite fun because when he left, and then he's like, "Oh, they want bond. They want 4 weeks rent," and he's traveling, and he was like, "It's so expensive to travel," and we're just giggling our heads off because, of course, it is.
Welcome to the real world, mate.
Welcome to the real world, my friend. But it is actually interesting because when we said that, it's like my real world is I'm from London and my parents are workers. My nan's from like Covent Garden, so like they were always doing flowers, and I've grown up. My dad left school at 14, so he pushed and learnt and was all like to travel and did lots of things for work. But my girlfriends, when I was like finishing, because I did go to a privileged school, I moved to Australia for my last 3 years, and I was like, "Hey, you guys got no idea. You guys are going to find out what the real world's like." And what I've realised now, I'm 50, the real world is still the same, is a bubble of their real world isn't my real world. They do stay in that privileged bubble because of the wealth of their family. And it's different bubble that they live in. So it's interesting when you say the real world, because it's like our perception of the real world is what we're putting on our children. But the real world can be lots of different things. I did, like, as we do when we're younger, judge. You'll find out how crap it really is. But it's like their reality is very different because of their upbringing and because of the way they, because of it does make a difference when you have generational wealth. It changes, I think, your perspective on life. And it's not wrong.
You can't do
it's not wrong. There's nothing.
You can't do a 2-week or 2-hour LinkedIn course on wisdom, can you? No one can sell that. It takes a few months.
It does take time. Yes. And I wonder if they, like me and my girlfriend, we've learned all this stuff, haven't we? We know all the stuff now. So our teenagers, you're watching them make a lot of mistakes. Right? So you feel like I better tell them all this stuff I know because I already made those mistakes, my friend. But they don't want to listen, do they?
Yeah, they don't want to listen, Lisa. Yeah, nobody wants to listen because they all want to experience it by themselves.
You learn from making the mistakes. So as a parent, you have to just give love and trust and hope that, I think, your kids know that you're there for them. If they end up, you'll be there. But you have to like my son, I had to kick him out the nest. I'm sorry. You got to go, my friend. He had 2 weeks. And I was like, you're here. Because I've had enough of this behaviour of PlayStation all day. And now he went into
if you think about it, Lisa, the thing is that, with every generation, the experience is going to be slightly different. Maybe the overarching concept might remain the same, and that's what you're trying to protect them from. But the process and the journey of reaching there would differ from one generation to another, and that's what's make it more beautiful. And as you said, as long as you are there to be supportive, and your children, they can fall back on you, if things go sideways, I think that is really what is required. And I think many, including my parents, they always want to teach you something, and sometimes you just have to walk the walk, just to figure things out by yourself, no matter how much.
they want to stop you getting hurt, don't they? I mean, they're just trying to make it, they want to stop you getting hurt, parents, that's all. And also what's driving them, like my parents were so mental, a really little bit over top on education because they both didn't have any. So they knew what it was like to not have education. So for them, it was like, it's so important that you get this. So when I dropped out of university after 2 years, like they were most upset. But
Oh,
that
guess
was
what? We
their
got something in
driving
common,
force.
Lisa. I dropped out of university after 18 months.
Yes, well, it's good because we went on an adventure and learned from the adventure of life. And that's easy. I think it's riding the roller coaster. And it's some people, as we said, some people, it's not wrong to not want to jump on. It does take confidence. Being strong in yourself is what it is the first step, as we're saying, if we're talking about achieving goals. Knowing that you can do it. I started off when I was broken, like my daughter had a lot of bullying and it just was like a spiral of like craziness going on in our world. And I was trying to prove to the outside world, it was actually one of my top achieving years in work. And I'm like volunteering everywhere because it was like I could control this. I can't control this craziness that's going on. But eventually I was like, okay, this is enough. I've lost it. And I realized I'd almost lost when someone said, what do you want to do? I didn't know what gave me joy anymore. I hadn't paid attention to what was fun. I was like, I love my job. And it was like, that's not actually the right answer. It's not okay to just love your job. I mean, I'm blessed that I do a creative job. I think it's fun. I couldn't do a job where I do the same thing every day. I don't think I would be the best employee. But it's so I've been doing that journey for a long time where I have, me and my husband both like adventures. But we've, when we drove to Queensland, we came up here with nothing and started building a business. So it's just all different journeys. None is wrong. It's just, as you said, you can't control your children, but get ready to watch and it's fun. And also know at 16, what it is their front of their brain is so developing ego and self. And we know we're like, they're so selfish. Like they don't think of anyone apart from them. I'm weak here and all they think about is them. That's actually part of them developing their own ego. And the front part of their brain, when they measure it, is massive compared to ours because they're developing self. So they don't end up completely selfish. You haven't failed as a parent when you, like, they come out of that phase and turn nice again. So be aware it's quite a fun journey to watch them fall over.
I'm still waiting.
Guys, I also want to welcome Tiffany, who has also been patiently waiting on stage. So, Thomas, if you have a follow-up question, you can ask, or else we'll go to Tiffany. I want to ensure that we finish up the show in 90 minutes.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that long response, Lisa, and I really thank you for your words of wisdom. Thank you.
Enjoy the ride. Always curious.
Thank you so much for that. So, Tiffany, please flash your mic if you're available. Awesome. Okay, go ahead. Do you have a question or is there anything you'd like to contribute?
Hi, Lisa. I'm Tiffany Warner. Licensed mental health counselor. I host a radio show. That's a live radio show called Moments of Clarity with Tiffany. Just to introduce myself. But I've been just listening to this. And I got to tell you, hosting a radio show, oddly enough, I'm not a fan of podcasts or listening to other shows. And I host one. But this has been a very interesting morning / afternoon for me, Jason. Thank you. Lisa, you and Thomas have had me cracking up silently. When you said, what does he want to be? And he said a race car driver. You're like, what are you, 5? I think I lost myself. And no kidding. And then I have a 16-year-old who I completely think as a parent, I'm completely screwed up royally. Like he's recently just broke his iPhone. It's an iPhone XR. It's whatever. And 16, and it fell off a roller coaster. Ironically, the metaphor, we were on a roller coaster, and I'm going to say metaphorically, and I mean, on a roller coaster, 50 feet in the whatever in the air, it fell out of his pocket. The staff actually swept the floor, and they found it. Like we found the location. It survived the fall too. It's so weird. And then he breaks it some other how like a year later. But metaphorically and realistically, I love the roller coasters, and the round and round and round ones make me want to puke. The carnival rides where it just goes around and around and around, those are the ones I actually feel nauseous on, or I want to throw up. And in real life, if something just is the same thing over and over and over again, it makes me want to vomit too. So I like the roller coaster, opening your eyes so you don't miss a moment and all of that. I love that metaphor. But anyway, back to the 16-year-old. Oh my gosh, I broke my iPhone. So I'm like, hey, bro, I have an iPhone 6 that I had and it still works. I'm not using that. I'm not going to be seen with
Oh my
that.
God, not an iPhone 6.
No. He's like, it
Wow.
doesn't work. He literally took the battery out and he's like, it won't even charge. I'm like, or whatever he did. And I'm like, you're using a broken charger. That's what he was doing. And I'm like, it works. And he's like, I'm not using that. I'm not using that. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, well, there's sales coming up the day after Thanksgiving sale, Black Friday sale in America. That's what it's called. And like everything's on sale. And that's when we upgraded our phones last year. And it's stupid to do it 30 days before, like when all the sales were great deals the day after Thanksgiving in America. So like, it's like, can you just use it for just a little bit? Oh no, like, so he's without a phone right now. He's like, you better hope there's not a school shooting. Like, oh my gosh. Anyway,
Sure,
I'm
I
sitting
don't
there, and
die.
he's like, you don't understand. You don't get me. And it's worse being a therapist because he's like, you just think you know everything because you're a therapist. And I'm like, no. And I actually specialize in young adults and teens and things like that. So it's kind of like, I hear I hear what's going on in the real generation, whatever, that I don't understand. But of course, they say the therapists mess up their kids more than anyone. Like when there's a family conflict, I come out and he's like, I don't need the dad from Fuller House out here. And I'm like, are you literally calling me Bob Saget? Because let's have a family meeting. Let's talk this out. Like, get away with your therapy, mom. And oh my gosh, nobody understands me, and you guys don't. I hate this family. So you telling me, and I know I tell other people, they'll grow out of it. They grow out of it, but it's reassuring and refreshing for you to hear it, for me to hear it from someone else too. Like, I'm not lying to my clients. Don't worry about, like, if you're saying
No,
it too. Thank you so much.
it
But
makes you feel it's their brain and it's not them just selfish little people, because you're like, how did I raise
oh
this
my
selfish
gosh, yeah, like entitled little
kid?
crap, and like you feel like awful the thoughts you think of them. Like, I didn't give birth to this, like, spawn of Satan. What the hell?
I know.
It
Yeah, that's
sucks
what
though, because
people
they're like, they're little babies that they want, hi mom, can we cuddle, like hugs, or love you mom, all these things. And all of a sudden, is in a blink of the eye, it's like, close my door, I don't want a hug from you. Like, it's like, what happened? Like, when did nobody gave me the memo to, like, all of a sudden change and alter, like, how I was going to be? I mean, nobody said, hey, by the way, in a week he's gonna hate you. Like, it just happened. Kind of like when we age and it's like we hit 40 or whatever. Shit, gravity happens and we want boob jobs or something. Botox.
he just, I think, being aware is like when they are mean and horrible to you, because my daughter is pretty nasty. That is actually not actually you. And I think that's what changed for me, is like, I have a choice.
They
So
probably
when
all would be friends with each other if they all met.
yeah,
Thomas's
when they're
their
spewing,
granddaughter, my son.
when they're
They'd all be little
spewing,
shits together.
give back. Give back pink love, my friend. You just don't take that energy, because we don't need that energy in our lives. So I just like, I love you, and I'll just give you some love, but I don't need to respond to this energy, because what often happens is we respond with our energy of anger, or we're responding with unnecessary, when they still love us. And right now is just a confusing time for them, and their brains are crazy. And we just need to wait for this moment to pass. It's actually worse with the girls. They're like crazy on the hormones. So I think being aware of that, but I'd imagine Like when you're doing your own branding, when you're inside the bottle is completely different from when you're actually prescribing them to other humans, because the reaction of our own emotions just does mess us up. It
Yeah.
hurts. Like that, but
Jason knows what I'm talking about. He's heard him in the background. He's like, he talks to you like that. You know what I'm talking about, right? You're like, geez, that's not right. So now, Jason, we have an explanation of what it's normal.
it's
But
normal. Give them love and they'll go through it, because I fought it with my daughter. And what I realized was when I just kept giving her positive energy and telling her the good things about her, instead of focusing on like, you're crap, like, why are you hanging with these losers? Why are you doing this? And fighting it, and then just giving her love and celebrating what was good about her, it was a game changer, because then it was like her energy rose and she started actually, I think she moved through, I think the hormone thing, I don't think we can do anything about this moment. It just goes. But then
The
she
hormone
moved
goes
through
away.
it, and
Yeah, they become
the
decom.
hormone, but it's not worth you wasting your energy of anger or creating that sort of energy and even worry or what have I done as a parent, because one, you don't have any control over that. So don't waste your energy on it. And all they need is love, to know that you're here for them, whatever, because they will mess up. And my kids have done drugs. They've done all the things I've had to be involved in. And I've been to the police station and I've done lots of things. But knowing that, I still love them no matter what. And I feel like that's the most important thing that your kids need to know, because it's not your roller coaster.
luckily, no, I've never. My son's not into any of that. Surprisingly, my AirPods are dying, so I don't know how much I can talk. If you can hear me, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Yeah, but they're dying, so my QA is I'm gonna end up on speaker pretty soon. And luckily, he's never really gotten into that. He's not a packet like that. Just the hating the world and isolating in the room like a lot of kids do. But I work with a lot of kids that they're not mean to their parents, even though they're going through homes, or they don't act entitled, at least
Yeah,
not
like
that I
myself.
know of.
Yes.
But then again, their parents are sending them to therapy for something. So who knows? It's like,
no one knows what's going on in other people's worlds is also something to really remember. Like, you never know what's going on, do you, with other people? We all make judgments on what people's lives are, but no one understands what's going on in our minds, but even inside their house.
oh yeah, people put on a facade on social media all the time. It's just a bunch of BS that
Well, even in real life.
unfortunately people compare their lives to that BS and go, oh, they must have it all together and I don't have whatever. But nobody's gonna sit there and post all the crap that goes on in their lives, or that's why they would need a therapist, not Facebook. But anyway, thank you for sharing, Lisa. I'm going to change my AirPods. Hopefully this changes over, and thanks for listening. It's a great show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Tiffany. Thomas, thank you so much also for your question. I want to give Lisa the opportunity to promote her business. So, Lisa, do you have any upcoming events or promotion, anything you like to promote on my show?
Thank you, Jason. Well, I have just in my life, I jumped on a new roller coaster at Christmas. I bought a retreat in Australia. So I am launching that now as an education space. So I will be running courses here in Australia and workshops, because I want to help people raise their energy, and it's magic where I live. But I also will be putting on more. I actually just got to the point in November getting ready to have online workshops for user journey, for actually understanding self and understanding yourself, what you want before you go to get your goals, which I think is key. And it's all almost done, but then I bought a retreat. So it's all gone on the pear-shaped. So I will say very shortly I'll start releasing some of that content. I've just managed to get my staff. I don't like repetitive tasks, as people hear. And I would say to a lot of people, if they are listening, as women especially, it's okay to not like repetitive tasks. You can get a cleaner. And I've had a housekeeper do, like, I've run 5 businesses, as you said, and I've looked after my family and been there, worked from home to look after my daughter. I could not have done that if I didn't have a housekeeper for 3 days a week. And so you can get support and ask for help in the areas. It's okay to not be good at everything. I think when I was younger, I thought I was less because I was like, I'm not very good at tidying up, keeping things organized, because I like looking into projects and deep diving and stuff. So actually solving that problem and like my housekeepers, I believe, been part of my whole team and part of the reason I've been able to have 5 businesses. So asking for help when you need it is really important. But I will be bringing out content. You can follow me at lisagalea.com, the Lisa Galea on Instagram or LinkedIn. You will find me, Lisa Galea. I'm pretty easy to find. And I will be bringing out some workshops on leadership, life leadership, and also on branding and understanding we're saying people buy because of emotions. So understanding that is really key if you want to get success. And to be a leader, people do things because of emotions. So the more you understand yourself and also how other people's drivers work, the more you can really achieve what you want in life and get your goals. So that is, I think, expanding your knowledge. It really does help. It helps you not control people, but it helps you actually control yourself, or take control yourself, I would like to say. Take control and make choices and feel like you're in control of your decisions in life, which I think is all we can actually ask for. And then we actually get to enjoy the journey on the goal setting, which is the most
Absolutely.
important thing.
That is so lovely. I wish you success, with all your, not with your retreat and all your other activities which you're trying to do. Within the retreat and even outside the retreat, coaching programs and all those fun stuff. That is really, really nice and very, very cool of you. Guys, in case if you want to find Lisa's website, I have it under the description, not only on Spotify, Google and Apple Podcasts. Once the show is uploaded, it's also on the event description as well. If you're on LinkedIn, you should be able to find it easily. If you're on Clubhouse, you should be able to find it. If not, just go over to my IG and you should be able to find all those links and everything. So on that note, Lisa, do you want to give people any final thoughts before we wrap up today's conversation?
Just enjoy life. It's not a rehearsal, and curiosity is essential. That's all I need to
And don't
say.
forget the sunshine.
Don't forget to act like a tree, because we want everyone to be blooming and having high energy and making sure that they're bearing fruit. So pay attention, my friends. I think that it really is key.
That is super, super cool. I want to thank each and everybody who has been here and supporting me for the past 2 to 3 hours. Thank you so much. You take care of yourself wherever you are in the world. See you next week. We are going to have a show with Dr. Danette King on 26th of October 2022 at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.